Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show you how to make kind of like little Cthulhu friendship necklaces. But if you like, I'm going to be using these Ammonites, so I'm going to have like little tentacles coming down, and we're going to be using polymer clay. But if you don't have Ammonites, that's okay. Use whatever you have on hand. Let's go ahead and get this camera flipped around and get started. Alrighty y'all, so you can use really whatever polymer clay that you have. Today I'm using a blend of Cos Clay and Sculpey Primo, like a literal blend. It's been blended together. The glow in the dark though is just pure straight up Cos Clay glow, and that way it's very, very flexible after it bakes. So I would not be making such dainty tentacles even out of the Sculpey Primo because I've never had it hold up the way I want. And we do sell some beautiful ammonites and other cabochons on our website, backtoearthcreations.com. Shameless self-promotion. But you could use any old pretty rocks that you have. I don't necessarily recommend baking resin because it can bubble. Some resins bubble even at the low. Oh, and there's a cricket in the house, apparently. So that's going to be a noise that we hear. Also, oh, let me show you the prototype. So this is the prototype piece that we had made. And so you can see we're going to be going over how to do our little bail. And this one came out like dummy thick though. I'm going to try to make this one a little less thick, but we'll see how that goes. And I am going to be starting off by sculpting on one of these glazed ceramic tiles. I like the glazed ones because they give me a nice shiny back, and it's really easy to just like pop the thing off when we're done. So all the tools and materials that I'm using, by the way, will be linked down in the video description. This is a cake fondant cutter from like a Dahlia set or something, but I just love that nice like fat teardrop that we've got going on. And so I've cut it. I'm going to go ahead and blend out the side there, just where the metal overlaps. And then we're going to reposition that back onto our tile. And now I want to take this and I'm going to press quite firmly, just right there like that. And I'm hoping that this step will help us to have a less thick pendant. So we do have a real short TikTok, like it's on all of our different social media, but there is a short form video that shows you some of the steps of how we assembled this piece. And I started by covering it first, and then there's another 2 layers. So I'm hoping that this way will be still nice and secure, but not quite so bulky. And so we're going to take, this is a little welded ring that I had gotten in a multi-pack, but you could just make your own ring out of wire. It doesn't have to be welded. And I'm just going to set that centered up and press it into our clay. And this is everything from the side again. I hope that that's helpful to you. I like to have it sit flat against, if this will end up being our neck, I want it to sit flat. I don't want it just poking straight up. Now I am going to be using a 6mm tiger's eye bead. This is a blue tiger's eye, and 22 gauge wire to dress that up a little later. And just keep from losing my bead, I'm just going to thread that onto my wire and do a little bend. That won't keep the bead on, but it'll do okay. And so now from here, I'm going to take some of this excess clay, and I'm just going to fold and roll it. And if you hear it clicking in the background, we have our kiln going. It's just the sounds of our home. Crickets, kilns, the neighbor's rooster, what have you. And starting from the center and kind of pressing, I have my hands at a little bit of an angle, like that, as I press and roll out. And this really helps me to kind of just get everything stretched a little faster. And if I make one spot too thin, I can reverse the direction and it'll make it nice and, hopefully, nice and the same thickness again. So I'm going to cut at an angle, and I want to come in here. Let's see if maybe we can get you a different camera angle. So now I'm just going to take this and place it, and I want to fill the gap around our Ammonite. Because I don't mind it being, you know, super thick. I just didn't want it too thick. And then I'm just going to cut like that. There we go. And from here, ooh, this is going to give us a nice little section that we can press down and get everything shaped around. Now, one of my favorite tools to use are these ball stylus. And I'm going to come through first with our big boy. This is like a 8mm ball stylus. And I'm just going to get this shaped and blended down. There are going to be multiple stages to the firing that we do on this piece. So I have my oven preheating to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. I do just use my regular kitchen oven. I just always make sure to preheat it first. So I'm coming through and I'm adding texture with the different size ends of my ball stylus. I want it to look kind of like a stone that you might find a fossil in, or coral growths, or just something intriguing and a little alien. Just coming through, really texturizing that up. But we are going to do multiple bakes of this piece, so we don't have to add every single layer right away. I do have my oven preheating to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. But I would recommend checking the instructions for whatever clay it is that you're using. Okay, so there's that. We have our little, and this looks dinky right now, like it looks a little too petite, but it'll really beef up once we add the wire wrapping to it. And so now we have our little area here all shaped out. And now let's start making some glow-in-the-dark tentacles. I'm going to begin by pinching off, I kind of did them like haphazardly on this piece. I'm going to try something a little different on this one now. And I'm just going to do maybe 8 to 10 tentacles. So there's 5 large ones. Now I'm going to pull some smaller. 7 and 8, and then I'm going to do my last 2 even smaller still, or try to. There we go. Let's go one more on the teeny tinies. There we go. And now from here, I'm going to roll each of these out into a double-ended tentacle. And they don't have to be perfect. It's just like a little polymer clay snake, but it's real pointed on each end. So there's that. There's 2. And then just rolling it out. Through the magic of editing, I'll meet you back here when I've got all of our little tentacle balls made into actual little tentacles. So sometimes I get a little hung up on hoping that I'm making the tentacles the right size and length and thickness and all that, and it's truthfully, don't worry about it. Like, don't stress it. What we're going to do is we're going to just start going, because we can always remake a tentacle, but the apprehension of, man, I hope I do it right, don't let that stop you from getting started. And so I'm just coming through, and about a third of the way, I'm just pushing and making a little bend in our tentacles, like so. And the less consistent you are, the better about being perfect about, you know, a third here or a fourth there. But this is going to help us to get like a cohesive, interesting, random, natural look, hopefully. I'm just coming through. And then I'm going to leave these 3 where we have not folded them, because we'll add those in probably last. Just I'm saving my most petite ones for last. Okay, I'm going to get everything transferred over onto our tile so as it doesn't get smushed under said tile. There's that. Just dropping those in. All right. And so now from here, let's just pick one and I'm going to set it and I'm going to squishy smush it in. And then we'll take another one, kind of orient it a little differently, but then squishy smush it in, making nice contact with the surface area inside that little indent that we had made. And then I'm going to press this. And you can see how I'm kind of layering and staggering the tentacles. And so I'm just going to layer that one in there and kind of press that way. And I think I'm going to layer this one in here and press that way. I'm kind of building it up around this center point. I'm going to set this one in and just smushing it into good contact. And then let's take this one and kind of have them go up the other way. And then I'm going to take that one, I'm going to just poke it in like that. And so I want it to look like it's going like wah, coming out of it. Wah. Do you see how it goes wah? I hope that makes sense at least. And then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this little tentacle in, and I'm just going to press, I hope I'm still in frame, down in the middle. And then I'm going to take that one, and I'm going to press kind of down in the middle. And then we'll take this one and we'll lay it across this way, I think. And I'm going to get down in the middle. But then from here, we can start to maybe train and sculpt things. I'm going to sculpt this one around just by kind of catching the tip of the tentacle. And then just coiling it in just a smidge. And sometimes nothing's quite laying right, but that's okay. This is where we just kind of get in there and sculpt things around and start making it look like something's up. And also, the less perfect, the better. You know, normally my inclination is to try to make like a whole bunch of really perfect and beautiful, you know, spirals. And it's like, I don't know if that's how this would actually be hanging out though. And then I'm just going to put this one little dot there, little dot of clay, and I'm just going to put a little spot. And then I'm going to take a really fine tipped ball stylus and go like that. Just right in the middle, because why not? And this may be difficult for the camera to pick up, but I am going to come through and add just some little, just kind of on like one side, just some sucker-esque. Like, they are in no way anatomically convincing, but they're just some little sucker spots. Just a little bit of texture, and it'll give us something for our paint to settle into when we're applying washes of paint later. And so I like to kind of do this step now before I get everything sculpted into place, because by doing this now, it allows me to put detail where I otherwise may not be able to reach later. And we can always add more details later too. So just kind of haphazardly, but so there's that. Now with this one here, we can kind of also kind of really like giving the tentacles like a friend, like the buddy system. So each little tentacle has a little buddy that it's hanging out with for the most part. It's not like exactly that way, but because then we can take them and we can do this number where we twist them all, almost like if we were twisting strands of hair. But I think it just makes it look really neat and kind of convincing, like maybe it got caught in a cross current. So I'm coming through, shaping this around, just like so. That's it from the side. I'm going to press that down just a little more. And then I'm just going to lift this part up. I'm going to twist it in a similar direction, but you can see it's got those other tentacle tips. Oh, so neat. And I'm just going to have it kind of hugging around on itself because I don't want too much protruding out like cray-cray, because I do want this to be an easy piece to wear. And sometimes too much, stuff protruding just makes me worried. Like, I don't want to be worrying when I'm wearing my jewelry. And then we can layer in some of these other spots. Just adding a little bit of a twist. And then I'm going to shape this one. Around just a smidge. And I'm going to try lifting this off. Oh no, my Ammonite separated. Boo. Okay, so it's going to be staying there like that. Okay, there we go. That's what I was trying to do, is just get it to be a little more rounded there on the side. So I don't know, I think that's pretty neat, and we're going to pop this as is into the oven for about 20 minutes. So I've pulled this out of the oven, and let it cool, and now I'm just going to slide behind it with my tissue blade, and you'll see that delaminated pretty nicely, and it's got some shiny spots, but that's okay because we're actually going to be adding a layer for texture and to kind of beef it up just a little bit more. And so to do that, we're going to take some of our scrap clay, and we're going to run it through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. It doesn't take a whole lot, and you can see we've got some little air bubbles trapped in there. That's okay, we'll just crank it through a few more times, and they kind of work their way out. I try to avoid air bubbles because sometimes they can kind of like pop and crack in the oven. Though it's been a while since that's happened, it's better to just not risk it. I'm going to use the same cutter as what we did before to just cut out a little section. We could use liquid polymer clay if we wanted to, but I don't feel like that's necessary right now. And then I'm just going to smush this on over with my fingers to pull that towards the edge and kind of get a nice wrapping effect. And this also gives us a little bit of unbaked clay that we can then bind some more details to if we want. So we can see here on this one, I had gone through and I'd added some little like balls of clay. So like I'd taken the clay and rolled it like so, and then we can just place them, and then using a ball stylus or a pen or a pencil tip or just what have you, we can add a little bloop, and we could do little designs around that way. I do want to make sure that I'm not trapping any air bubbles on the back side as well though. And so we can just shape this around. And you can see we've got some really nice flexibility here on these tentacles that are like protruding out. So that's neat. And we can add a little bit more detail if we like, kind of dragging these ends in. Just sky is the limit on how you want to do this on your piece. So I'm just coming through and kind of like scratch dragging it with the tip of my stylus towards the front and blending out that seam. And then I think I'm gonna make some more little balls. And oh, but I want to add some nice texture here to the back as well. So I'm just going to take a ball stylus and hammer the whole back, and through the magic of editing, I actually completely forgot to add the additional wire. So I'm actually gonna peel this up and pretend like everything's fine. And I'm going to pull off about 2 feet of this wire. And this is 22 gauge in vintage bronze by Parawire. We do sell some of this on our website, but you can use whatever you have on hand. And then I'm gonna position, ooh, I kind of like it hanging down like that. So we're just gonna do a little bit of decorative wire wrapping here. So it doesn't have to be structural at all because that's being achieved by the ring that we're using. And so I'm going to try my best to stay in frame. There we go. I just wanted to get that scooched up a little tighter. And I'm going to start by doing, there's 1 and there's 2 additional wraps. So it looks like we got a total of 3. And then I'm going to scooch it over to make sure that we're nice and centered. I want the bead to be centered. And I guess that's why we don't need it completely butted up, is so that it can come down just a bit. You know, either way, it's fine. You can have yours be as perfect or as symmetrically perfect or as asymmetrical as you want. Perfection's just a meeting of our own expectations. I feel like exceptional things happen, not when perfection happens, but when we let go of our expectations and let the wire and let the whole project just go kind of cray-cray. So now we have that added, and I'm gonna come in and do just a little itsy bitsy spiral off to either side. And we have a whole masterclass on wire wrapping spirals. It's a free video series. All of our tutorials are free, but it's a video series here on YouTube that's like 6 or 7 parts. And my goal was to have a video series that newbies could watch and get a complete foundation that if you watch and practice along, that's the important part, to practice along with those videos, then you'd be able to tackle any tutorial, not just ours, but any tutorial across the wide expanse of the internet, and have a good foundation of techniques that you'll, kind of have your bearings around you. And well, gosh, that's where I'd like to be. So, but yeah, we go over how to make little itsy bitsy spirals there. So just coming around and sewing through here. There's that one. And then I'm going to do this part here. And the reason why I went ahead and pulled up the clay on the back is because to keep this from wobbling, I'm going to thread the wire through just across that section. Little tippy tappy of the Z-dog feet. Coming around. And just shaping. Oh, and I really love that. But I'm going to come down now this way and just have it come across. And then and then we'll pick this right back up in a sec. And so I'm trying to remember, symmetry doesn't come naturally to me, so I'm just gonna surrender myself to it and just try my best. Normally I do like to do this step before I have the back clay on, just because the whole point of baking it was so that I could do this and squeeze and not have to worry about my fingernails indenting or, you know, anything like that. But we can still do the steps out of order from each other. There we go. And I'm going to do one more little twisty bit. And then I'm going to cross through there on the back. Please pardon my doggy. He's very upset that my husband's eating and not sharing, but that's okay. And now we can retexture the back. So it's kind of showing a little bit more than I would have liked for it to, but again, that's fine. What we can do now is I'm just going to get this stabilized, because before I put in the effort to get the back all clean and pretty again, I want to get these wires stabilized so they're not shifting around and disrupting the clay even more. And so I'm just coming through here. And I like to make the wire look as though it's just grown on itself, you know? Like if we can have this there we go. Just twisting and meandering around. Ooh, and I think I'm going to do a little spiral just on the tippy top right there, just because we can. And then if we have enough wire, we could probably plant it just there in the back clay as well. But okay, I'm gonna pull this back down because we've got some little bent up gooby pieces. We've got a creepy cricket. There's that. And so what I mean by tucking it into the back is we can actually, and I don't have all my pliers over here, so I'm just gonna use my wire snips to make a spiral just to see if we can really, it's jank, but it's working. And now I'm just gonna spiral that in and get that planted into the clay. Boom. And that's one less little pokey end that we're gonna have to worry about whenever we're wearing it. And then for this one here, let me actually go get my pliers. So here I have my most petite round nose pliers, just because they work really well with the 22 gauge, making just a nice teeny little spiral. And we'll just tuck that in. If there's any little odd bits poking out, we can just cinch those as well. And now we can get back to texturizing. It's smushing and squishing and doing all the good things. But yeah, I'd very much rather have a little bit of a jank spiral poking through, like showing its texture through the clay, than just some rogue ends. So the magic happens in the details. And every little detail is an opportunity to weave some magic. So anywhere that got a little too fingerprint heavy or got smushed by a fingernail, I'm just going to kind of hammer in. Stipple, I think, is the term. There we are. And now we can come through, and I'm just going to cut a uniform width of clay, and I'm going to set this bit off to the side, and this should give us a really nice gradient. And so I'm going to square up the ends. And I'm going to cut everything up equally first, more or less. It does not have to be perfect. You could use a ruler if you want it to be a little more accurate. But now we can take these, and this will be 1 dot. The next one will be 2 little squares. The next one will be 3 little squares. And then I'm going to go back to just 1 little square, to 2, and then to 3. And that actually worked out kind of perfect because now we have 4 little pieces to use for our centermost bead or dot, or however we want to look at it. And from here we can take this and, ooh, I kind of want to make a little foomp, like a little teardrop like that. And I'm just going to press it and kind of squish uniformly. So now I'm going to do both of these. And I'm going to just put the tip of it there and come up. There we go. And we'll add a little bit more texture to these momentarily. I just want to get all of the dots applied first, even though we've made them a little oblong now. Oop. And this just makes a nice little, like, kind of scallop on his butt. And I'm not even certain if I like this, but that's an idea, so I'm just gonna peel it off. And then I'm gonna burnish that in a little bit more. Well, that's a way that we could have done it if we decided we wanted to that way, but I think instead I'm gonna come through here and just do like uniform dots right along the edge, roughly uniform. But yeah, having them all kind of pre-cut up definitely makes things go by faster, and through the magic of editing, I am going to meet you back here whenever we have dots applied along the full perimeter of our Ammonite pendant. So now once we're up to this stage, I'm going to use our ball stylus to just do a little dimple. I just like the way that looks, really. You could do whatever you like. Just doing a little boop and a smoosh. There we are. And then whenever you decide that your piece is ready, we can go ahead and pop it back into the oven. This is an excellent time to sign your piece. And so I'm just going to come in here on the back and do my little artist's mark. That I clearly need a little bit more practice in. There we are. And then I like to do the year as well. So there we are on the back. And then we can prop this or hang this, and I'm just going to lay it on its back again and bake it in the oven. And I'm going to do this one for 30 minutes because it's our final bake. So something that we could have done before baking would be to kind of like rub on some different Prolux pigments or other mica powders, like these here are like nail art powders. But if you don't have those, I've also seen folks use like eyeshadow and stuff, but I completely forgot to do that part. So now I'm going to be going through and I'm just going to be applying all of our pigment, just using my finger to rub paint onto the high points of this. And this is what is this? It's an acrylic paint, but it is the brushed metal in brushed copper tone. And I'm not really worrying about whether it gets down into all the nooks and crannies. I just kind of wanted to apply it in a way other than dry brushing, because I am going to be dry brushing on top of this with this pure gold metallic. So now I'm going to try some with a paintbrush. Just really, there's no right or wrong way to do this part, y'all. Like, just make it look however you wanted it to look. You could make your piece very, very colorful. Like on this one here, I used an eyeshadow on the back. And now you'll want to make certain to seal it after you've applied powders. But I wanted to make this one a little bit more copper toned, and so I am going to get, using the tip of this small paintbrush, I'm going to get the copper like down and in there where my finger couldn't reach. And I think the trick to making it look like good is layers, because it's really the same technique but layered makes it look really, really cool. And so I'm going to start with this base layer of the brushed copper, and then we're going to let this dry, and I'll meet you back here for the next step. So now that we've let our copper paint dry, I'm going to get just a little bit of this gold, and I'm just going to dry brush across the surface. And I don't want to dry brush over everything, I just want to add little patches where it's a little more gold than copper, because I want it very, very subtle. Because I do think I like it whenever there's multiple subtle layers going on, because it just, I don't know, it looks nice, I think. Okay, cleaning up the outside of the bottle. And we can dry brush it on, we can stipple it on, just whatever technique you use, just do what makes you happy. And then we're going to let this dry, and that's very important because this next step we're kind of getting everything all wet again. And so I'm just going to set this here, and I'm going to set a timer because I can't be trusted. So here I'm using one of my favorite Lumiere paints by Jacquard in the Halo Blue Gold and the Halo Violet Gold. And these have a really excellent way of kind of separating their colors out whenever exposed to water. And so this is why I feel like it's quite important for us to make sure that we let the base layer of paint dry first. So I'm just watering down some here off to the side, and then I'm just going to come through and kind of just touch it onto our tentacles. And you may be able to see, I'm going to risk zooming in here, how that starts separating out. It just kind of pulls and drags, and we can also just do a wash, really. I think that's the term for this. Just come through and do a nice wash over all of our tentacles. And this is where sculpting, like the details that we add during the sculpting process, like those little tentacle suckers and all those different things like that, can really start to become very apparent. And again, we're going to be adding layers upon layers upon layers to this. So do not feel like you have to get everything spot on perfect right here at the beginning. because we can always come through and add a few more details later on. And so that's how that's looking. I'm going to do a little bit of a wash on the back just because we can. I'm going to zoom back out because I never know when I'm in frame, y'all. But yeah, just setting just a little bit of that color down and in there. Rinsing out our brush, and now I'm going to transition to our purple, which I think is getting a little, yeah, it's a little dry. So let's see if we can't get a glob onto our brush, and then just doing that same thing, trying to dilute it out. And then I'm just going to touch that little bit of purple to some different spots and just see how it settles. And then I'm gonna let this sit here and just dry as is. A little more purple. And then I'm gonna set another timer for myself because again, I can't be trusted to not rush the paint drying. Okay, so ignore the other projects on my table, those are for something else, but I want to show y'all how I go through with Minwax water-based polyacrylic. This is a crystal clear finish, ultra fast drying with easy water cleanup, allegedly. Well, because that's what it says on the container, but no, it works pretty well. And I'm going to start by doing the back of the piece. And I like to put on a generous enough coat that I don't have to worry about brush strokes. Do you see how nice and glossy that is? So now I'm just going to set that down on its face to dry. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to do this one. Oh, I had intended to put a little bit of black acrylic paint in my maker's mark, but I think this will be fine. And just getting all the sides that are facing the back, like all the surfaces rather that are facing the back. So even the little tentacles over here. Now if I get little bubbles in some of the lines, I like to just drag them out and remove them with my paintbrush. And then if you're impatient like me, we can actually just hang this to dry by the bail, and we can go ahead, and remove that polyacrylic from the front because I don't want any on the gemstone. There we go. And we can go ahead and, wow, I really love the way that purple comes through. Varnish this. And then we'll just hang it by a little hook to let it dry. Looks like a bunch of wet spaghetti. Now you can also seal and then do more layers of paint if you feel called to that. So again, there's really no right or wrong way to go about doing this. And I do like to use a damp brush to kind of lift any of the polyacrylic that maybe got on the surface. But yeah, so then we'll let this dry and I'll meet you guys back here so we can see what the final result looks like. Just for demonstration purposes, this is how I have it hanging to let it dry, with just a file stuffed into a drawer. It's super high tech. And this is how it came out, all nice and dry. I love that polyacrylic polish does a really good job. It doesn't make the polymer clay tacky or anything like that, the way I've experienced with mostly clear nail polish or any spray varnishes. Now I did not do a like antiquing wash on this one, so I wanted to show you this one that we made in our real short TikTok. Like the on our social media, you'll see the work in progress on this one, and I really loved how that came out using just a black acrylic wash to really bring out those details. And here you can see, y'all, it glows in the dark. That makes me so happy. It is so intense, and of course the camera isn't picking up on all the details because it's hard to balance that glow, but I kind of want to make another one with more glow. Hey y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with me during this video. I do hope that it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. I love it whenever y'all suggest like new tutorials or different techniques, and I learned so much from you guys. So thank you so much just for being here and participating in what it is that we're doing. If you would like to participate harder, we have our Happy Crafter Club, where we do like monthly subscriptions and exclusive coupons and first dibs on our shop updates, but that is in no way required to continue participating with our free tutorials just by being here, tickling the like button, commenting, sharing if you've got crafty friends, or any of that stuff. It really does go a long way in helping the channel, not just to appease the algorithm, but also to let us know what you're interested in, because I'm interested in everything. And so y'all help so much in pointing me in a direction, and then we just go. So I will see y'all next time. Sign up for a free newsletter at backtoearthcreations.com. Cha! Yeah, we'll see you next time, guys. Happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.